Hey everybody, welcome back to the Weekend Vagabond. Today we're doing something a little bit different. Normally I try to go off the beaten path to places that aren't that well known, but today is pretty much the opposite. So today we are at Lone Elk Park in Valley Park, Missouri. It's a really well-known park for people to drive through and get a look at elk and bison and deer and other wildlife. But there is a trail in this park, and there's also a very interesting history about the beginnings of this park and how it relates to our nation at war. So I hope you stick around, enjoy the video, and take a look at the history of Lone Elk Park. All right, so here we are at the entrance to the park, and this is not really on the trail that we're going to be hiking, so I wanted to show you this before we get started. When you first drive into the park, you'll see this tower off to the left-hand side, and we'll get a lot deeper into the history of the park, but to kind of give you the quick version of it, this park started off as federal property that was used to test ammunition for World War II. And so this tower was actually one of the locations where they would fire machine guns and they would shoot them off into the horizon into some areas that I'll show you later. Now there's not really much of a view from this tower right now. As you can see, it's all heavily wooded area now, but it's still pretty interesting. You drive by this tower and I think most people probably don't even realize what it was originally designed for. Hey guys, it's me from the future from a few days after this hike. I'm putting the video together and I wanted to give you an important safety message regarding Lone Elk Park. There's a couple signs at the park that say that there's a severe tick and chigger infestation. Needless to say, I didn't see the signs. I didn't use enough bug spray. And here I am a few days later. I pulled off a couple dozen seed ticks and also had the worst case of chigger bites I've ever had from any of my hikes. Totally sucked. So just want to let you know, if you take this hike later on, in case you don't see the signs, definitely make sure that you're wearing bug spray. Treat your clothes if you can ahead of time. It's a great hike, but those signs are no joke. There is definitely a chigger infestation there. So now that we've got that out of the way, let's get back to the video. So after you get a chance to check out the information in the visitor center, the parking lot for the visitor center is also basically the trailhead. So it's about a 3.2 mile loop, and the trail starts right up here, and then it'll wind up coming out right over here. So you basically start and stop your hike at this parking lot. So we're going to go ahead and grab some camera gear and then start our hike. All right, so here we are at the start of the trail. Like I said, I'm at Lone Elk Park in Valley Park. It's a very popular spot for people because you can drive through and see elk and bison roaming around. The bison are in an area where you can't get out of your vehicle really, but the elk are just roaming free throughout the park. So you have to exercise a little caution and not get too close to them, but it's not unheard of for you to be set up in one of the picnic areas and a short distance away there are elk that are laying in the grass relaxing. This hike is a really nice hike. It's not really very difficult at all, but it gives you another good view of the park. Because it's so popular, there's also a lot of traffic. It's still worthwhile, but you really shouldn't expect to not see anyone else here if you come and visit. But the trail sort of winds through a little bit of quieter areas and doesn't seem to be too heavily used, so it does give you a little bit more peace and quiet. So we kind of already touched on it at the beginning of the video, but this park was initially part of a larger section of about 2,600 acres that was called the Tyson Valley Army Powder Storage Farm. And this was used to test ammunition during World War II. So started off about 1941 time frame, and they tested 30 and 50 caliber ammunition out here. There's also another section of land that's not part of this park anymore where they did a lot of storage of the ammunition, I believe. So that was how the park started off. Was actually not a park at all. It was just federal government used for ammunition testing. And then later on, about 1947, after World War II was over, the land was classified as surplus, and St. Louis County Parks took ownership of a bunch of the land, and they opened up Tyson Valley County Park about a year later. So that's how the park was initially referred to, or how it was known. A few years later, they brought in 10 elk from Yellowstone National Park as, I guess something for people in the area to see, some wildlife that they might not encounter normally. So that was in 1951, early in 1951, in February time frame. Well, then towards the end of 1951, the United States decided to take the land back because we were entering the Korean War. And so they wanted to use the facility for what it was designed for originally and do more ammunition testing. By 1958, so that's about 7 years later, the elk population had grown quite a bit. They had 103 elk roaming the land out here. And I've seen some different stories online about what the issue was, whether it was too difficult to maintain the elk population. I even saw a story that an elk attacked one of the vehicles an officer was in with the military. But for whatever reason, they decided in 1959 that they were going to eliminate the elk population. So they set out to kill the 103 elk that lived on this property. They would later find out, hence the name of the park, that they didn't get one. I don't know if you can see them, but there were a couple deer. I don't know if there goes another one. I think they're pretty used to seeing people out here. I mean, you can't get right up next to them, and I'm not trying, but they don't run off too far. So like I was saying, in late 1958 and into 1959, the military killed off all of the elk population. For whatever reason, whether it was too hard to maintain the population or they were becoming a problem for the military trying to do their thing. But in 1963, so almost 5 years later, the land was declared surplus again, and a little over 400 acres went back to the St. Louis County parks. And when they took the land back, a worker thought that they spotted a bull elk on the land within the boundaries of the park. So my understanding is they had a opening in a fence line, and I think they put down sand or something and watched for the tracks of the elk to come back into the area that was designated as a park. And once it did, they secured that fencing, and sure enough, there was one elk that had been living by itself for the last 5 years and managed to survive the military trying to eliminate the population. So hence the name Lone Elk Park for this area of land. But we are also coming up to some remnants from the wartime use of this park. You can see this concrete building. And these little concrete buildings, there's several of them, and I believe those were used for storage of ammunition, record keeping during the testing of ammunition. There's also some areas with concrete walls, just freestanding walls that were used as protection from ricochets. And then I'll show you a little bit later on the 2 bullet traps in the park that were used for the testing. Now, one of them is in the bison area, so you can't really get up close to it, I should say, because you can't exit. You have to be in a vehicle in that area. But the other one is really close to the trailhead. Oh, and look at this. This is what's so cool about this park. There's a deer just chilling out. Hey, buddy. Or, hey, girl. I'm not bothering you. I'm just walking through. Let's see if I can maybe squeeze off a picture real quick. Nothing to see here. So anyway, like I was saying, there's 2 bullet traps in the park. One of them's in an area that you're supposed to be in a vehicle, so you can't really get out and get too close to it. But the other one is right by the trailhead where we started. So we'll go check that out once we finish the trail and get a better look at it. Here's the lake. Just take a quick look at it. This lake is about 50 or 60 years old, I think. It's a man-made lake, and I don't know if you can see it, but over there's an area that's marked off with construction fencing, and I believe that's covering a sinkhole that's been draining the lake. So I'll put up some pictures from Google Earth to show the lake going back in time a little bit, but this lake just started draining again from a sinkhole that opened up in May of this year, and it's the second time in 5 years that there's been a sinkhole open up. The last time in 2016 it drained the lake down pretty far, and they really didn't know where the water was going at first. And then, according to a newspaper article that I found, they found that the water was coming back out in a creek about a mile away in Castlewood Park. So that's just due to the land and the rock in this area. There's lots of caverns, little underground areas where water can travel. So I don't think they know yet what happened to the water from this latest sinkhole, but it's drained the lake down, I think 6 or 8 feet already. So they will fix it, though, according to the Parks Department. They're gonna fix it. The lake's important not just as a tourist attraction, but it's also a water supply for the wildlife. So they want to keep it in a healthy state. I guess now's as good a time as any also to ask you if you enjoy this video, if you're interested in seeing more of these types of videos with maybe a little bit of history stuff mixed in with the outdoor stuff. Do me a favor and like this video, subscribe to my channel. You'll find out when new videos come out. I hope to be ramping up the number of videos now that we're hopefully out of the most brutal part of summer in St. Louis area. But it really helps the channel out. It helps me out quite a bit. So like I said, click on the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. If you don't like it, grab your friend's phone and subscribe him real quick when he's not looking. Either way, I appreciate you guys sticking around and watching this, and if you have any information about Lone Elk Park or any suggestions for other areas with some interesting historical context, leave me a message in the comments. I'd love to get some ideas of more places like this to check out and to document for everybody. So I wanted to show you real quick. So here's the entrance to the trail, or exit, depending on which way you go, I guess. That's where we entered. Like this. And right up the road here, not on the trail, but not too far from the visitor center, is this first bullet trap that I was telling you about. So this is one of the two places they would fire the guns into in order to test ammunition. And then you can see just to the left of it is a very small concrete building. I don't know if that was used for record keeping, maybe used to observe when testing was in progress. Let's see. It's like just some random stuff stored in there, like old junk. So yeah, that's a bullet trap number 1. I think it's about a half a mile from that tower. I could have that wrong. I'd have to go back and look it up online again. But this is the one that you can kind of come and check out on foot. And the other one we're going to drive past as we're leaving the park. Okay, so that wraps up our trip through Lone Elk Park. Hope you enjoyed it. It's definitely worth a trip down here. If you can't get here during the day, that's usually the best. Gets a little bit busier in the evenings, but still well worth it. So thanks for watching. See you on the next one.